Okay, so you know how we always talk about mentors having that secret sauce, that something special that can totally change the game? Well, get ready to deep dive into a story from history that proves this stuff's not just some modern buzzword.
Hit me with it. I'm always up for a good history lesson, especially when it involves epic mentors.
We're talking about Alexander the Great, the guy who pretty much conquered the world before he even hit 30.
Alexander, yeah, definitely heard of him. But conquering the world, that takes more than just being a military whiz, doesn't it?
Exactly. And that's where the mentor magic comes in. We're diving into the incredible influence of, drumroll please, Aristotle.
Okay, now that's a power couple for the ages. Alexander the Great and Aristotle, what a mentorship matchup.
Right. And it all started with Alexander's dad, Philip II. He knew that brute strength could only get you so far. To build a lasting empire, Alexander needed to be more than just a warrior. He had to be a true leader.
So Philip basically went out and found the ultimate brain to shape his son's future. Talk about parental investment.
No kidding. And he scored big time with Aristotle. This wasn't just your average, here's how to swing a sword and win a battle kind of mentorship. We're talking ethics, politics, science, philosophy, the whole shebang.
It's like he created the original liberal arts degree, but tailored specifically for a future emperor. That's some next-level mentorship right there.
Yeah, it's like having a personal advisory board, but all rolled into one seriously brilliant philosopher.
And they say mentorship's a modern concept. So what were some of the golden nuggets of wisdom that Aristotle passed down? What was the core of his leadership philosophy?
Well, one of the biggies was this idea of eudaimonia.
Eudaimonia. Now there's a word you don't hear every day. I'm guessing it's not about winning chariot races.
Not quite. Think of it as the ancient Greek secret to a fulfilling life. But it wasn't just about feeling warm and fuzzy. For Aristotle, eudaimonia meant living virtuously practicing courage, justice, wisdom, and embodying those traits in everything you do.
So basically he was saying, be a good human, and you'll actually be a better leader. That's a pretty radical idea, even today.
Totally. Because it's not just about being a nice guy. It's about understanding that true power comes from leading with a strong moral compass, which, let's be honest, is a lesson some leaders even today could stand to learn.
100%. And the thing is, Aristotle wasn't just promoting some ancient Greek version of self-help. He believed that a ruler who embodied these virtues would naturally inspire loyalty, foster stability, and ultimately govern more effectively. It was a recipe for a thriving society, not just a feel-good philosophy.
It makes you wonder, what if today's leaders were measured by their eudaimonia score as much as their, quarterly profits? Imagine if that was a thing.
Now, wouldn't that be an interesting metric? Forget the stock options. Tell me about your eudaimonia bonus. Imagine a CEO being evaluated not just on shareholder returns, but on things like their courage in making tough ethical decisions, or their fairness in creating a truly equitable workplace, and their overall wisdom in navigating those crazy complex challenges.
Okay, but seriously, I can see the headlines now. CEO's eudaimonia score soars after implementing Aristotle-inspired leadership program.
Now, wouldn't that be refreshing? A world where ethical leadership isn't just good PR, but a core business strategy.
Right. Talk about a game changer. But let's get back to Alexander. Because it's one thing to learn about all this high-minded philosophy, but it's another to actually live it out, especially when you're, conquering the world. So how did this philosophy infuse leadership actually play out in Alexander's life? Because conquering an empire is impressive and all, but governing it, that's the real test, isn't it?
That's where the rubber meets the road, right? You can have all the best mentors and the most impressive education, but can you actually walk the talk when the pressure is on? And that's where we see Aristotle's influence really shining through. Because remember that concept of the golden mean we talked about, finding that sweet spot between two extremes? Well, that wasn't just some abstract philosophical idea. It played out in how Alexander actually ruled.
Okay, so balance. Got it. But how do you apply that when you're leading an army across 3 continents and trying to build an empire that doesn't crumble the second you turn your back?
Yeah.
It's got to be tough.
Well, imagine the challenges Alexander faced. He wasn't just meeting armies on battlefields. He was encountering completely different cultures, languages, ways of life, people who saw the world completely differently than he did. And Aristotle's teachings emphasized understanding those differences, not just conquering them.
So it's like cultural sensitivity 101, but in 300 BC. Talk about ahead of his time.
Exactly. But with incredibly high stakes. One thing Alexander was known for was adopting the customs of the people he conquered, even wearing Persian clothing after defeating Darius III. Can you imagine the impact of that? A conquering king embracing the culture of the conquered?
That's a powerful statement. It's like he's saying, I respect you, I see you, I want to understand you, not just, you're conquered, get used to it.
Right. And he even encouraged his officers to marry Persian women, fostering a sense of unity and shared identity. This wasn't just about being nice, it was about strategic leadership.
Because a stable empire doesn't run on fear alone, right?
Right.
You need buy-in, a shared purpose, a sense that everyone's got something to gain.
Absolutely. It's creating that sense of belonging, that we're all in this together feeling. Alexander seemed to intuitively understand that.
Instead of just imposing one dominant culture, it's like he created a giant cultural exchange program, just with a few more horses and chariots than we're used to.
Precisely. And in doing so, he was laying the groundwork for a more cosmopolitan, interconnected society centuries ahead of its time, really.
Mm.
And that vision, that ambition to unite diverse people under a common banner of, say, knowledge and progress, that traces right back to Aristotle's teachings about the polis, the ideal Greek city-state.
Okay, so unpack that for us. What was so special about this polis idea?
Well, the polis wasn't just a physical city. It was more like a community, a living organism almost, built on this foundation of shared values, civic engagement, and a love of learning. Aristotle believed that a well-functioning polis allowed individuals to flourish, to reach their full potential, which in turn strengthened the entire community.
So it's like that old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. But instead of boats, we're talking about philosophers, artists, warriors, everyone contributing to something bigger than themselves.
Exactly. And Alexander took that concept to heart. He didn't just conquer cities, he built them, and he designed them to be these vibrant centers of learning and culture, often blending Greek ideals with local traditions. He was putting theory into practice on a massive scale.
Talk about taking your education seriously.
Right. It's a powerful example of how philosophical ideas, even those that seem abstract, can translate into real-world action. And this is where it gets really interesting for us today. Think about the leaders who've had the biggest impact on your life. Were they the ones who ruled through fear and intimidation? Or the ones who inspired you, who fostered a sense of shared purpose, who created a culture where everyone could thrive?
It's amazing to think that those ideas, those leadership principles, were being debated and discussed thousands of years ago in ancient Greece between a young Alexander and his mentor, Aristotle. It makes you wonder what history would look like if Alexander hadn't had Aristotle as his guide. Would he even be Alexander the Great without him?
It's a question worth pondering for sure. Would he still have conquered the world? Maybe. But would he have ruled it with the same vision, the same blend of strength and cultural sensitivity? I'm not so sure. I mean, the guy built libraries in every city he conquered. Who does that?
I'm with you on that. It really highlights the ripple effect a single mentor can have, not just on an individual, but on the course of history. And you know what else is interesting? Aristotle's influence wasn't just confined to Alexander's life. It spread throughout his empire, influencing art, architecture, philosophy, governance for centuries.
That's right. And that's a testament to the power of ideas to transcend time and circumstance. Just as Alexander's approach to leadership was shaped by Aristotle's teachings, so too can our own leadership be informed by the wisdom of the past. These stories, these figures from history, they have a lot to teach us if we're willing to listen.
So as we unpack these larger-than-life figures, it's easy to think, well, that's all well and good for emperors and philosophers, but what does it have to do with me? But that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? What can we, in our modern lives, learn from this ancient duo?
Yeah.
So we've been talking about Alexander the Great and Aristotle, this epic mentorship that shaped not just an empire, but ideas that still resonate today. But how do we actually apply those lessons, in our own lives? What's the takeaway for someone listening who's running a business, leading a team, or just trying to navigate their own personal journey?
That's the key question, isn't it? And I think the beauty of these ancient stories is that they offer this timeless wisdom. We all have the potential to be better as leaders, as thinkers, as humans, but sometimes we need that outside perspective, that guiding hand to help us unlock it.
It's like that saying, you don't know what you don't know. Having a mentor is someone who challenges you, pushes you outside your comfort zone. That's how you discover blind spots and possibilities you wouldn't have seen on your own.
Precisely. And that's something that holds true whether you're on a literal battlefield or just facing those daily battles of running a company.
Mm.
Look for people who inspire you, who embody the qualities you admire. Courage, wisdom, that strong moral compass. Seek them out. Learn from them. Let their example guide you.
It's interesting you mentioned a strong moral compass, because that takes us right back to Aristotle's idea of eudaimonia, living virtuously to achieve true fulfillment. It's not just about achieving goals, it's about how you achieve them, the principles that guide your actions.
And that's such a powerful concept, even in today's fast-paced, results-oriented world. Because true success, the kind that brings lasting satisfaction, comes from aligning your actions with your values. It's about building something you're proud of, something that reflects your integrity and your commitment to making a positive impact.
It makes you think, what would our workplaces, our communities, even our world look like if we all took that to heart? If we all strive to lead with a little more eudaimonia, a little more Aristotle in our approach?
It's an inspiring thought, isn't it? And it starts with each of us making those conscious choices, asking ourselves, what would Aristotle do? How can I bring more courage to this situation? How can I approach this decision with wisdom and integrity? How can I lead in a way that not only achieves results, but also uplifts and empowers others?
It's like having that internal compass always guiding you back to your true north.
Yeah.
And the more we do that, the more we create a ripple effect, influencing not just our own lives, but the world around us.
Exactly. And that's the enduring legacy of Alexander and Aristotle. A reminder that the pursuit of knowledge, wisdom, and ethical leadership isn't just some abstract ideal. It's a journey with the power to shape destinies and change the world.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into mentorship leadership and the enduring wisdom of the ancients, here's a final thought for you to ponder. What's one small step you can take today in your own life to embrace those principles? To lead with a little more courage, a little more wisdom, and a little more eudaimonia, because sometimes those small steps can lead to the most extraordinary journeys. And on that note, we'll wrap up today's deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those big questions.
It's been a pleasure diving in with you.